Thank you for joining us once again on The State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, regulatory actions, and political maneuvers in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact your freedoms.
Please support The State of Freedom by becoming a monthly supporter or member of the Warrior Circle, or by advertising your business, your nonprofit, or your event with us. Go to freedomstate.us. We are bypassing the mainstream media cartel and the establishment political parties in Louisiana and coming directly to you, spreading the uncensored voice of freedom across Louisiana and beyond. Fuego is just unbelievable. Whether it's the flame-grilled carne asada or a signature mango margarita. I had one of those too. They're serving up a literal feast of freedom at Calle Fuego. It's just extraordinary. I love the owners, Andres and Jose. They run such a great restaurant. The service is extraordinary. The atmosphere is great. So if you're in Pineville and the Alexander area or passing through, or if you live there, go to Calle Fuego and tell them the State of Freedom sent you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom, where we are grounded in faith in the Constitution. We're committed to giving voice to the truth, living with courage, and taking action. It is, what day is it? It's Thursday, March 12th. It's a few minutes after 10 a.m. And just a quick announcement up front for those of you catching it right now. I want to make sure you know that starting next week, we're going to move the show up to 8 a.m. So that gives Chris enough time to get down to the legislature bright and early for 9 a.m. hearings. So y'all want to tune in at 8 starting next week. We'll do that throughout session, whether we like it or not. So, well, I'm Danielle Walker, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Chris Alexander of Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. And we are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network, on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. You can always catch us later on our audio-only platforms as well, like Spotify and Apple Podcast. Well, our guest today, I know that it seems like he might have gotten booted out, but let me introduce him and then we'll figure out what happened. I want y'all to brace for an unfiltered and fearless, fiery truth session today as we welcome our guest, Peter Ticktin. Peter is a legendary Florida litigator with over 5 decades of crushing it in the courtroom. He was Trump's classmate and a trusted ally of his from the New York Military Academy. He's a best-selling author of What Makes Trump Tick, and he's the powerhouse attorney currently representing Tina Peters in her high-stakes battle for freedom. Today, we will touch on Tina's case, the push for pardons, and the urgent fight for the future of election integrity. Let me see. Yeah, it looks like Peter is having some internet issues. But I'll go ahead and read the scripture of the day, and then, look, here he is. Let me welcome him back. Hey, Peter, welcome.
Hi, how are you? Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us. I'm glad that your internet allowed you to get back on.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad too. I'm not sure how it all works, but anyway.
Truth be told, none of us know.
Kind of like the voting machines.
I've been kicked out of better joints than this, so you know.
I don't know how it works either.
Let me go ahead and read the scripture of the day, and then we'll get into all kinds of stuff about the elections. The scripture today is Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3, and it says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and I will tell you great and mighty things which you do not know." And the Lord woke me up in the middle of the night with that scripture, and I think it was to remind me that He is the one that has all the answers. He has all the solutions, the keys, and the strategies that we need to succeed in the work that He's entrusted in our hands. He doesn't set us up for failure. If He gave it to us, He's made a way for us to succeed at it. And He's not calling us to look around frantically, running high and low for answers. He's not telling us to go talk to everybody we know about the problem we're facing. He's telling us to call on Him, to simply ask Him, and he'll give us the idea, the solution, the right person to contact, the right place to look, the right strategy, or even blueprint. And we can save a lot of trouble and a lot of stress if we start with the Lord as the one that we seek for our answers and strategies and direction.
Yep, no question about it. And, we'll get the answers. Not always right when we want them, but we'll get them when we need them. And Peter Ticktin always seems to get the right answers, always has the inside information, and as you said, Danielle, has been a very accomplished litigator for about 50 years. So Tina Peters is, in fact, in good hands.
Try again, please.
Can you hear us, Peter?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Can
We
hear
got
you.
you.
Okay.
Hear you
Not recording is gonna make me kick out, so something's wrong with your software.
Something's wrong with my software. That makes sense. It causes a lot of problems.
Okay, but if you can hear me and you
Yeah,
can
we
see
can
me,
hear you. Yeah, we can hear
We
you
hear
and
you
see
very
you.
well.
leave it the way it is. Don't click on it.
It does.
Okay.
It does say. For some reason, it does not say that you are recording.
Not being recorded right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Should we bump him out and have y'all come back on?
We did that just now, and it gave us the same issue. So it'll be good for like 30 seconds, and then it'll stop recording.
Okay. Well, let's just move forward with it. I guess since we're live, we should be able to see him. Hopefully, maybe if Katie's in the chat or somebody's in the chat, let us know if you can see and hear Peter.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay. Okay, that's
Peter, I'm so glad that you're here. It's such an honor to have you. Read about you all the time, and follow what's going on with Tina Peters. So, welcome to the State of Freedom. I want to start with a question here about the governor's pardon here. A couple of weeks ago, when you were on Matt Meck's show, you thought that there was a chance, and I know that we never know for sure, but you were fairly optimistic that Tina Peters may be pardoned by Governor Polis within a fairly short period of time. What is the latest on that? Is Governor Polis possibly reconsidering or still deliberating on this?
He's still deliberating, and I can't really say very much because I thought the way the ducks were all lining up, it was going to be last week, and then, somehow I misread the tea leaves, but I don't have any more tea leaves to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, at this point, it's up to the Governor Polis. We're hoping and expecting that he's going to do the right thing.
Yeah. Well, he
And,
certainly has given some indication that he would, so we remain optimistic about her release. It's such a, really an extraordinary injustice that has been done to her. There have been other cases where defendants have been similarly situated in Colorado, and the Attorney General has been so much more lenient on them than on Tina Peters. And we think we probably know the reason why that's the case, but I continue to pray, I know Danielle does, and all of our listeners, for justice to be done here for sure.
I get that, and I will tell you that Tina wants me to speak about the other things. She wants me to talk about the election fraud, and especially right now. So it's not about Tina right now, although that's what she was involved in, and
Yeah.
that's part of the reason she's incarcerated. The judge is
Yeah.
very clear that he didn't give her bail pending appeal because of what she might say,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
something we don't do in our country, but except for what Judge Barrett did. So
Yeah.
to
What is
get-
the latest on Peter, on the election fraud issue?
Okay, yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that because this is the most important thing that I've ever dealt with. We're at a crossroads right now where we have a pivotal issue. And when I say pivotal, I mean pivotal. I mean, do we keep the United States or does it now disappear as the land of the free?
Yeah.
Okay, because right now we're facing an election. The midterms are absolutely pivotal. If the machines are involved and the machines are going to determine the outcome of the election, then we have a real problem on And what we need is an emergency order from the president. I've communicated to the president. I'm sure the president knows and understands this. The problem is that we need to be able to have a perception of the problem in order to be able to have the cure for it.
Yeah.
So, the governor of your state, for instance, here in Louisiana, your governor cannot declare an emergency because of a storm that nobody can perceive. So it's sort of the same problem that we have in terms of this. The president needs to have a perception of this problem, and that's why it's so important that I speak of it. We know, okay, a great deal. We know that the machines can determine the outcome. We know that the first election that was fixed was in 2004 in Venezuela, when it was Smartmatic and Sierra, and those machines were basically applied to a recall election for Hugo Chavez, who was extremely unpopular at the time. But because of the machines, he got 58% of the vote, and he stayed in office. We know that from that point on, that Venezuela has not just been exporting cocaine and fentanyl, but they've also been exporting election results to 72 countries. They're the ones that had the programming designed and made for Sierra, for Smartmatic, and it's the same thing in Dominion, and it's the same thing now in Liberty machines.
And Peter, if you don't mind, I'll just pause you right there to ask about those 72 countries. Are those the same 72 countries that our CIA was involved in color revolutions to overthrow? So it wasn't just this fake organic uprising in the streets, it was also manufactured election results?
I think for the most part, you could say that. That would be just my opinion. Most of what I'm talking about, I know from evidence.
Okay.
As to which countries they are, that's a matter of opinion. That's not a matter of evidence.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
but there's no doubt in your mind that there were 72 countries that had elections rigged electronically, and the source and origin was Smartmatic in Venezuela.
What do you think's going on in the world? What do you think's going on where we don't have freedom of speech in Australia, where we have people in Canada that are in prison because they've criticized the government, where we have, 30 to 50 people a day in the UK that are being arrested for things that they may have said on social media and for texting?
Yeah.
So if you text somebody the wrong thing and they bring it to the police, the next thing you know, you're being arrested for saying something that you should not allowed to say under the legislation that they've been passing in these different countries.
Yes.
So, times are changing. We don't have that in the United States. We have our Constitution to protect us from that. But things are changing. And if they do change, it's a funny thing how people don't realize just what they're about to face if that does happen. They don't get active in these things. They're not watching these things. They're not paying attention. They'd rather go to a baseball game or a hockey game or whatever. Who can blame them?
Right.
I mean, we all want to be able to entertain ourselves and so on, but they're not watching what is going to change their lives. Everyone knows the experiences that they've had as a child when they learned about the fact that people pass, and eventually every child thinks about, what if my parents die, and they might even get a twinge of sorrow, but basically it's not really real. It's just an idea.
Yeah.
So it's not all that traumatic to think about these things. We all think about these things. We think about our brothers, sisters, wives, husbands, our loved ones passing. It's just natural.
Yeah.
But when they actually die, that's when we really learn misery.
Yeah.
We don't know misery just from thinking about it. We know misery from living it.
Yeah.
And if we ever went communist, if we ever lost what this country is made of and went that route, it almost sounds all right. You listen to what I consider to be the communist national anthem, which is John Lennon. I mean, who can complain about John Lennon? Beautiful songs he's written, but the song "Imagine," imagine only sky above us, no God. Imagine nothing to live for and nothing to die for. This sounds almost sweet and wonderful, but I promise you, if it ever became reality, it would be misery every day. Only with a death, you learn to accept the death. With communism, when a country turns to a totalitarian state, it's every day. It never goes away.
And it always sounds benevolent, Peter, while they're in the process of acquiring their power. And it doesn't become facially and evidently tyrannical until they have locked in to power. And then you see the reality of it all. And that's what I think people are having a hard time getting. People just have a hard time perceiving that the liberty and freedom that we have enjoyed in this country for so long could ever be lost. I truly believe that that's their perception. And you really have done, a great job and continue to do a great job as we try to do here of informing people and waking people up that, the price of liberty truly is eternal vigilance. And I think too often we've replaced the principle of eternal vigilance with perpetual and collective apathy.
Well, in this situation, we know that this is happening, and I'll explain to you what it is that is happening. We know that the voter rolls have what we call modified duplicates in them. A fellow named Andrew Paquette was the one that discovered this and was able to find algorithms that actually were able to, once you had the algorithm, you could keep finding all the duplicates. So what do I mean by duplicates, modified duplicates? What I mean is that in your voter rolls and mine, we can have more than one Peter Ticktin. We can have 2, we can have 4, we can have 7. It doesn't matter how many there are. We know that they're there because we've discovered them and we can find them. Wow. They're in the archives. Nothing ever gets erased from the voter rolls. When they find and realize somebody died, and they remove that person from the voter rolls, they don't delete that person. They simply put them in the archives. And when something is in the archives, they can be pulled out of the archives, made current, and back to life again.
Wow.
And then they can be put back into the archives again.
So that's how dead people vote.
That's how some of the dead people vote, exactly. But what's more is there's an endless supply of imaginary people. So these modified duplicates are basically imaginary people. They have exactly the same. So if there's 2 Peter Ticktins or more, the duplicates have my social security number. They've got my driver's license number. They've got my address. They've got my phone number. They might have a little difference in the date of birth. We've found that sometimes those are modified. And the name may not be my full middle name. It may be just an initial. But basically, all that information is duplicated. The one thing that's always different is the voter identification number. And so, and I'm talking about large numbers. I'm not talking about, little flukes that we see. I'm talking about up to 2 million of these in New York alone, up to 1 million of them in Florida. I mean, we're talking about enough that they could easily steer and change whatever the outcome of an election needs to be for them. So we're talking about these modified duplicates that are every so often because of the algorithm. So, let's say the algorithm is every 11th person. So every 11th one you'll find will be a modified duplicate in the rolls. In the voter rolls. So, so this is something we know exists. And so let's take a look, not at the voter rolls, but let's take a look at the machines. We had an incident in 2020 in Antrim County in Michigan. That's a very red county, a deep red county. And Joe Biden won that county, which is an impossibility. And so and by a large margin. And what they realized is that the vote got flipped. Everyone who voted for Donald Trump, that vote went to Joe Biden. Everyone who voted for Joe Biden, that vote went to Donald Trump. And this could be done very easily. Mark Cook was able to show me exactly how this is done, and it's done by, he could do it by just checking a box in the program, but you have to be able to get in the program to do it. So how do they get into the program? We know that Dominion Machines is very proud of the fact that their tabulators are air gapped. Have you heard of air gapped before?
Not
Yes.
connected to the internet.
It means not
Allegedly.
connected to the internet. No wires are sticking into it. There's only air around it. Well, first of all, we know that many computers can communicate with wireless. I mean, probably your laptop does it every day. But more than that, what we really found, and the real means of it is not wireless, they've got phone chips on the motherboard. All right, and this isn't somebody's imagination. This is provable. We know this for a fact. And not only are they phone chips, but they're robust phone chips. These are the kind that are used by first responders. Those phone chips did communicate out on November 3rd and the wee hours of November 4th, Election Day, and the following morning in 2020. So we know that the gig is up, kind of. We know that this is what happens with these machines. So what's really alarming is that right now, what we're seeing is that these machines are at work in the primaries. We had a primary in Texas and Arkansas and North Carolina last week, and one of the candidates, a fellow named Weston Martinez, asked for a copy of for a list of the voters that listed. And what he received was a list with all the voters that they had down, the names of the people that voted. Doesn't say which way they voted, but the people that voted. And guess what? It was filled with modified duplicates. All with an algorithm, all at the same distances apart.
Do you have any insight, Peter, as to who is inserting those? I mean, would the registrar be complicit, or would they never really even need to know?
Oh, they wouldn't know. No, God, no.
Yeah.
No, they'd never be able to keep a secret either. No, these things are coming. You know, I can't say where from. I could tell you in 2024, the reason that Donald Trump is our president again is because there was no interference by the machines, because the database in Belgrade, Serbia was completely wiped out. The chips were melted in the database by overheating. Exactly the same procedure that was used by the Israelis against Iran when they needed to knock out their centrifuges.
Wow.
So that's what they did. And nobody knew. They didn't know if they were successful. And this was done 3 days before the 2024 election.
Who did it, Peter?
Well, you could ask Pat Burns about that. He's my client. I'm representing him in the suits that are against him by Eric Coomer and Dominion Machines for daring to say that Eric Coomer and Dominion Machines had fixed the election.
Yeah. So, Peter, the elections then are being rigged electronically, both through these modified duplicates, whereby you have phantom people listed on the voter rolls, as well as real people who are dead. You have that coupled with then the algorithmic flipping of the votes of people who are real and who have actually voted. So it's a combination of both.
Well, I can't speak to you about the dead people. that come back alive and they vote.
Okay.
I know it happens.
Phantom people, but a combination of phantom people and real people's votes being flipped.
That I can tell you. That I have evidence on.
Wow.
Why do you think it is, Peter, that if this evidence existed shortly after the 2020 election, I think I know probably the answer to this. Why is it that none of the cases that were brought alleging election fraud were sustained in court? Was it?
They didn't look at the evidence. They were knocking them
Yeah.
out left, right, and center on the basis of standing. You know, oh, you don't have standing. You're not the guy that was running for the election. That you know, that's what was going on there.
Why is it, Peter, as a lawyer, why is it that a voting citizen in a state would not have individual, particularized standing to bring a claim if they have evidence of election fraud? Why would they not have statutory standing? And should there be laws in states that grant automatic statutory standing to a person who votes, is a participating voter in a state who has evidence of election fraud? Why do they not have a vested legal and judicial interest in that case?
You know, there's an old saying that the law is an ass. And, you know, I realize that that may seem partial because the Democrats are the party that have donkeys or asses that are their symbol. But there is that old saying, and the reason for it is because it's not a question of what the law should be to a lawyer. It's what the law is. And so, you know, how the courts interpret the standing issues and so on are to basically control the amount of litigation and to make sure that only parties that are actually significantly withstanding are able to bring their claims.
Yeah.
But you know, so that I can't answer you because it's these issues of standing have come down through many generations of jurisprudence where the law has been developed.
Yeah. But the fact remains, Peter, the fact remains that for whatever reason, and it's important for people to know this, the reason why those cases were routinely dismissed.
Well, there's
based on
another part of
procedural
it
issues.
that I was going to say, which is that the country turned greatly against hearing anything at all about the election fraud because part of the theft of the election was the interference that was built in. January 6th, what happened on that day was planned in advance. Now, who am I and how do I know these things? Well, you know, for 9 months, I worked directly under President Trump reporting.
It just felt like 9 years.
But for 9 months, I was the one that was in charge of marshaling the evidence about January 6th. And one of the things that came across my desk were videotapes of the meetings that were had by members of Homeland Security. I'm talking about deep state members and NGOs, where basically the taking over the Capitol, the breaking of the windows, and the entering of the Capitol, and so on, were planned going back to September 2020. It was not
Wow.
something that was a spontaneous thing that occurred. It was something that was planned in advance by the left. And we have videos of the Zoom meetings of hundreds of people who should have been investigated, who should be meeting up with charges. But again, there's so many things where nobody's looking. The Justice Department is failing us. Such as that. They are aware of these things. They're just not interested.
Yeah.
Instead, they'd rather go after people, you know, like Joby Weeks because he dealt with bitcoins, or go after Raj Berry because he introduced two people that did something wrong. You know, they're going after a lot of people that are not guilty of anything, but who are MAGA people that love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that started under Biden, and to a great extent, it's still happening under Todd Blanche.
Yeah. And the
So,
videos, let me ask you this, the videos you're talking about,
Uh-oh. Chris froze. Okay,
oh,
hopefully he'll circulate back. Are you all right, Chris? You froze for a second. What were you saying
okay,
about the
good,
videos?
good. I guess it was the intellectual illumination of Peter's brilliance that was blinding me here for a second. Uh, but anyway, what I was saying, Peter, was
yeah,
so you're talking here about evidence, hardcore evidence of collusion among NGOs
we
and
have it. We have
federal
it.
officials well in advance of January 6th.
Yes, exactly. Oh, long in advance of January 6th, before the election.
In what government, in what government is that not only taken very seriously, but a matter of urgent priority
Yeah. Well,
in
in
a
fact,
constitutional republic?
we also see foreign involvement in these as well. We see the Ukraine was involved in January 6th as well.
That
And
Azov battalion.
yes, the Azov Battalion,
Yeah,
the Fourth Reich,
Yeah,
and what did they have to gain by having Biden in office? How about $350 billion?
that's right.
Right? I mean, they were well rewarded for what they did, and I mean that war wasn't going on before the election. That war was something that came about after
Yeah.
Biden was
yeah,
in office,
right.
and
And if I can just take you back to Texas for a moment, where does that candidate go from here now that he has observed with his own eyes that there's no possible way that these people have 5 clones of themselves?
well, the thing is, he actually got. They contacted some of the people that are there multiple times, and it's not that they don't have it under oath in an affidavit yet or whatever, but those people swear that they've only voted once, and you know, it's just not even believable that they voted over and over again, and the numbers are, their voter identification numbers are staggered in a nice, clean, equal distance, which just could never happen by chance. It's
Yeah.
impossible. So we know that this is what's happening, and we really and then think about what the ramifications could be. Okay, that's the worst part. Okay, because they're accusing the president already of murder because of that. What's her name? Her last name is Good.
Oh yeah,
That lady that
Rebecca, I think.
not
Something
Rebecca.
like that. The woman in
The,
Uh,
the,
Minnesota.
the ICE
yeah,
incident.
Yeah.
the one in Minnesota that was shot. She by an ICE officer. They're trying to blame the president of the United States for that. So they can come up with any crime whatsoever. Once
Sure.
they have the House, if they take the House back, they'll be able to impeach, impeach, impeach. But if they get 2/3 of the Senate between themselves and the rhinos that they get, and with these 22 senators that are up for election, the 22 Republican senators that are now up for reelection, if they get 18 of those seats, which they could probably take all 22. But if they took 18 of those seats, they'd have a 2/3 majority. And if they have a 2/3 majority, they can remove as well as impeach. So, in other words, they would remove Donald Trump and J.D. Vance from office at the
Yeah.
same time. That's the
So,
plan.
so it would have, so they would get the simple majority in the House to impeach, and then they would have the 2/3 necessary in the Senate to actually throw them out of office.
Right. And when they're thrown out of office, then the Speaker of the House becomes the next president. And if they have the majority, the Speaker of the House will be Hakeem Jeffries.
Scary, scary thought.
Yeah.
Very
Peter,
scary thought.
back to the algorithm and these electronic computers.
Yes.
If a person were actually looking at it, I mean, tore it down, what is there a discernible pattern? And by that I mean situations where throughout the evening, or just as you're looking at these returns, let's say it's Biden and Trump. So for every 5 votes that Trump gets, 7 go to Biden, and then it continues 5-7, 5-7, 5-7. In other words, in looking at it, is it clearly obvious that this is not a naturally occurring phenomenon? This is not how
Oh, yeah.
statistically
Well,
this would be occurring in an election.
we saw that last time. We saw how impossible it could possibly be. Look, it was so obvious to all of us that
Yeah.
something was really wrong. I mean, no state ever stopped the count on the vote before.
Right.
And I'm talking about wartime, peacetime. It didn't make any difference. No state ever stopped the count. All of a sudden, you've got your swing states all stopping the count at the same time, where Donald Trump was ahead. And then you see the next day, they show us the graphs of what happened, and you see it's from the time they closed, the votes are still being counted. Only it's 97% for Biden from that time forward until there's a margin ahead for Biden where he now wins the race. I mean, that's mathematically impossible.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world that could have ever occurred in that way. The same kind of ratios in all these states and so on. It's not worthy of belief that happened on its own.
Do you think that we have an Antrim County situation with the governorship of Texas, that Doc Chambers and Abbott got switched?
Our election system is entirely compromised. The same voter base, the same voter rolls, the same machines can operate on any election in the United States.
Yeah.
Is there any
So-
limit? Is there any limit algorithmically, Peter, to how much manipulation can occur?
I suppose there is. I mean, once you start going above the actual population amount or numbers.
But
in order to
within
make
that,
it
but
work.
within the population numbers, is there any limit
Well,
to the
there is that limit of the population number.
But as
You
far
know,
as
how
the
many-
number
how-
of votes that can be switched back and forth within the population, or is there any limit to
Ye-
that?
Yes, but we've already seen, I don't remember which states, but we've seen where the numbers exceeded the number of eligible voters. That doesn't seem to stop anything.
Peter, you mentioned Patrick Byrne earlier, which brings to mind Maduro's extraction, because I know he was talking a lot about that at the time. Do you have any insights on what may be going on with Maduro?
Yeah, I mean, it's just common sense. The man is facing the rest of his life in solitary confinement in the what do they call it, the max.
Max security.
Rikers, is it Rikers Island, maybe?
No. I'm talking about. I think in Colorado they have these.
Oh, okay.
They've got the supermax. That's what it's called.
Supermax, yeah.
Yeah, the supermax. You can't break out and you can't communicate with others. You are that is hell. So he's going to go to hell, or he's going to give information because he has information. He knows who's who and where's where. He's coming forward with this stuff. My understanding is that he's making deals. Okay,
You've got that on pretty reliable source for that. That he's cutting some deals.
I have it on a reliable source that this is happening. So, that he will be coming forward with evidence and information. So this is what we need in terms of the public perception.
Yeah.
As I said, you can't have a governor of a state declare an emergency for a storm that nobody can perceive or understand or see. And that's what we have here. We need to get public perception because the president has to make it an emergency order. Not that the order has to be like an emergency order. I don't mean it like that, but a declaration of an emergency,
Yeah.
because there is an emergency. Look, let me ask you this, okay? Uh, you know, so Chris, did did do you have an ex-wife in the works anywhere?
An ex-wife?
Yeah.
No,
No, you
but
don't have one.
I do have one that wants to kill me some days. But
Okay. Oh,
but no, I don't have
but
an
not an
ex-wife.
ex-wife.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just pretend that you have an ex-wife. And let's also pretend that she's not only hostile, but she's a little bit nuts, okay? And let's just say that you're driving down a two-lane road, one lane in each direction, with nothing separating you except two painted lines on the road. Okay? You've been in that situation before, right? And let's just say that your opposing traffic is doing 70 miles an hour one in the other way, and you're doing 70 miles an hour in your direction. And you get a phone call from somebody you trust, like Danielle. And Danielle tells you, by the way, your imaginary ex-wife, I'm saying imaginary now, but in the scenario, in the hypothetical, she's not imaginary. Your ex-wife, I just found out that she has gained access to the computer in your car, and she can take over the steering at any time she wants.
Oh,
Okay?
dear.
Oh dear. You're doing 70 miles an hour. You got nothing except a double line on the road separating you from the oncoming traffic. Is that an emergency?
I would
Feels
say
urgent.
absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you pull over on the side of the road and turn it off? I mean, or are you going to take the risk? Well,
Yeah.
right now we have an emergency. We have somebody's taking over the control of our election, and they're going to determine who's going to be running things and determining how our government will operate, including whether or not we should all be rounded up and put in prison. Is this an emergency? Darn right it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peter, slight difference in your analogy is that putting it within the context of elections, the wife has in fact manipulated the steering, and you have crashed head on into the vehicle that's coming towards you. So you're not really taking preventive action here. We're taking corrective action because the manipulation and the fraud is already occurring, as you've said, on a broad scale, right?
Well, it did occur, but now we have Donald Trump back in office because we frustrated their ability to do that. But we don't know where their computers are now.
Yeah.
And if we knew where they were, we don't know whether there's redundancies. So we don't know whether or not that could be attacked in the same way it was, because these people never make the same mistake twice. These are very smart, capable people that are doing this. They're dedicated for the purposes of destroying the United States. And that's what it's all about. That's what was going on under Biden. That was a regime that was basically presented to us and put into office by the cabal, by China, by the World Economic Forum, by let's just say even the forces of evil. So, these are our enemies that are taking over our country. We're at war with China, and we're at war with them without bullets being. Well, there's some bullets, if you want to count the bullets that took the lives of some people, like Seth Rich, for instance. There's been some bullets, but for the most part, it's a different kind of a war. And for a lesser military power to take over the United States, how do you do it? And you do it by taking over the election system
Yeah.
and destroy it from within.
Do you think the election system, Peter, are you suggesting that the election system is now marginally or even substantially more secure because of Trump than it was previously?
No, until he comes out with his order declaring an emergency and requiring hand counting in public, we're doomed.
I know you said you don't have any tea leaves left, but do you have any tea leaves with regard to timing on this? Like, are we talking weeks or months where you would
But,
expect to see something happen?
well, in that election that I told you about in Texas, the guy that won the Republican primary is a lefty who is
Yeah.
really hot to trot on DEI, and he's extremely woke. I mean, that's what the Republicans elected, and no, that's what the
Right.
machine put in there as our candidate. So for the most part, they want to do it right from the primaries. They want to put the candidates in. Then it doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat that gets elected, as long as it's the people that vote their way in
Right.
the House.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
And they have the luxury of probably increased plausible deniability when they're electing sort of a broad range of Republicans and Democrats. It's not all Democrats, but yet ideologically and philosophically, they are the same. So as you said, what's the difference? But it seems like they have more plausible deniability because at least it appears on the surface that you're electing, you know, a broad range of people from both parties.
right, but they do have to make the majority, the simple majority.
Well, now
now
that is true. Yeah.
of the
Well-
Democrats
well
in order to
said.
get their guy in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter,
Is-
there's a great comment in the chat here. It says, it's by David. He says he's been married and divorced twice. It's best to be the crazy one in the relationship if possible.
Right on.
Seems
David.
like solid advice, David.
Yeah. Peter, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's occurring on the state level and just here in Louisiana and see how this jives with what you've heard or know about in other states. Here in Louisiana, it seems as though despite all of the ominous warnings that have come out of the Trump administration from Tulsi Gabbard, from President Trump himself and others, the national cybersecurity experts who've been very clear about their warnings on these electronic voting systems, it seems as though the institutional bureaucrats in Louisiana simply will not listen. Our Secretary of State right now is on the verge, relatively close to investing well over $100 million of our money in new electronic voting systems. And that does not include the roughly $1 million a year cost of annual maintenance of these computers. What is the disconnect between the administration and I know you're speculating because you don't live here, and Louisiana leaders, and is this occurring in other states? Is this degree of tone deafness occurring in other states as well?
And I might
Yes,
just
and it's
add
quite
real quick
understandable.
that there's a lot of public pressure against this as well. So it's not that the people are being silent. I just wanted to
Enormous.
make sure. Yeah.
Yeah, enormous. Despite enormous grassroots pressure, it's as though they know something that we don't know. And perhaps included in that is an understanding that they're invulnerable at this point because our elections are so broken that there's no way to get them out of office.
Well, it could be also a little bit more innocent than that as well. Okay, so imagine all of a sudden somebody waves the magic wand, and all of a sudden you get elected, and you're the clerk of the county in which you live. Well, in Louisiana, I guess it would be a parish in which you live. So, and you have the responsibility of making sure the elections go the way they're supposed to go. And you've got people selling you systems. You've got Lion Decker, basically, who's basically, and notice the word lion is in his
Yeah.
name. Okay.
Lying, not lion. Let's make sure we
That's
make
right.
that distinction.
Yeah. So, Liberty has taken over those machines, but it's the same as it were. It's not as though he's going in and taking the phone chips out of the motherboards. It's not as though he's disconnecting it from the whole system that causes the results of the elections. So, that's all a farce. The fact that there was this name change doesn't change anything. And we just had in the Coomer, not Coomer, but Dominion versus Byrne case, Dominion was able to change their name because it was in the case alleging that it was simply a change of name. So don't think that the involvement of Liberty machines as opposed to Dominion machines is going to be any better. It's the same thing. So, but if you were the clerk and you needed to get things going, and you got salespeople coming from Dominion saying, this is what you need, and this is what you need to get, and this way we take care of everything, and it's all a seamless operation. Otherwise, you do it on your own, you're going to do hand counting. Well, then you better watch every hand count. You better, whatever. I could see people going along with the flow because this is the way everybody else is doing it. So they're buying machines, so we'll buy machines, and we'll do it all through the machines. And you sure these machines are good? Oh, they're good. They're very good. You sure they don't cheat in any way? No, how could they? They're air gapped. I mean, so, this is the new way of counting ballots. It's got to be by hand. If it's by hand, we don't need the machines. If we don't need the machines will no longer be able to control the outcome of our elections.
Yeah.
And so think about it for a second. So you've got these tabulators that have all of these programs in it that we're not allowed to look at. Even the lawyers in the lawsuits are not allowed to look at their programming,
Right.
because the courts deem all of that to be trade secrets. So we don't get to see what the
But I
programming
have to ask
is.
you this, Peter. I got to ask you this because I know you only have 9 minutes left.
Yeah.
One of the things that stuns me about these systems is that, as you know, the source codes in these systems are proprietary. And so not even election officials, not even, independent, objective cybersecurity experts are allowed to go in and do a deep dive and a forensic investigation into these source codes, which are basically the brains of these systems. How do you have a government that is accountable to the people when the people and or their representatives are not allowed to see how this system works? How
Exactly.
do you have a constitutional republic accountable to the people in that scenario?
You don't. What you have is a black box that is supposed to only be counting the vote, but we know it does more. And we don't know exactly how it works or what it is because we're not allowed to look at it. And the only other thing we now know about these black boxes is that they've got phone chips in it where they call out or a central source calls in. And they're basically like cell phones that are able to take instructions through those connections. So, that's what we have. So what would you prefer? Would you prefer to have that black mystery box determining the outcome of the elections, somehow counting it? Or would you prefer to use your own eyes? Because if we have hand counts in public that are under camera, especially, they'll be streaming it, or you'll be able to look at it later at your leisure. You'll be able to speed it up. You'll be able to put a computer on it, so whatever, some kind of AI to see if there's anything wrong with it. But basically, you've got it so you can see it because it's hand counted in public, as
Yeah.
opposed to a mystery box to determine the future of our country.
Yes. And our Constitution here, Peter, just so you'll know, here in Louisiana, explicitly requires that our votes be counted publicly and preserved inviolate in the event that there's a contest, a contested election. And not only is that not the case, but our system here right now, there's no paper whatsoever. We still have the old DREs, direct recording equipment, which doesn't even produce a piece of paper, which really doesn't solve the problem because it's spit out by a machine. But we don't even have a paper receipt here in Louisiana now.
Oh,
I just find it mind-boggling.
I can't believe your elections are being run properly and fairly.
Yeah.
Us
What is the
either.
likelihood? What is the likelihood at this point, Peter? No, that we're going to get something from the Trump administration in advance of the midterms, something that will actually change the complexion of this?
Well, my understanding is that this should have been done already. And I'm disappointed that it's not done. There are people that were already put in a position to make sure it did happen. And I'm hoping that they're coming out with something, sooner than later. And I've heard the president speak lately where he's kind of not mentioned the hand counting, although he's mentioned the other factors that you mentioned, like 1 day voting, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I I've been in communication with the president. I've written to him in this regard about how important this is, and I think he realizes how important it is too.
Yeah. So the consolation to us here is that the administration is aware of everything. They understand the problems, including the problems, particularly with the electronic voting systems. You're confident that they are aware of the vulnerabilities.
I am.
Well, and
Yeah.
the risk, should it not get resolved, it falls squarely. I mean, the people who are going to be punished the worst are, like you said, President Trump and J.D. Vance. So I pray he gets it turned around.
Well,
Absolutely.
yes, as a matter of fact, they will get it the worst. They and their families. They and all the MAGA people that support them.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
certainly have a compelling interest to make sure that this gets corrected, before the midterms. What do you think now, just from the perspective of an American citizen who's been observing the scene for many, many years? What do you think the biggest vulnerability is politically for Republicans going into the midterms?
The machines.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm not talking about the voting manipulation. I'm talking about the political vulnerabilities in terms of, like, for instance, how do you feel that the war in Iran will play into the midterms?
Oh, no. Here's the thing. We have the votes. We are the silent majority.
Yeah.
So
if we lose,
we're the vast majority.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the approval ratings last year, these numbers mean a heck of a lot more than who's approving of Donald Trump's speech.
Yeah.
But if you look at the polls from last year's State of the Union address, the worst poll was CNN, with 69% of the people approving of his speech. It went up to 76%, depending on which poll. So it's over 70% of the people approved the speech. And let me tell you something. If you don't like Donald Trump, you don't like anything about him, and you don't like his speech either. So for somebody to approve of his speech to that percentage, that's where we are. It's a loud minority. It's a very loud minority, but it's a smaller minority than people think.
Yeah.
This isn't something 45, 55. This is 30, 70.
Yeah.
So if
And-
we lose, it will be because of manipulation in the system.
No, I
question
can
about
tell
it.
you worse than that. If the machines are allowed to be used, we don't have hand counting, we will lose.
Peter, what advice would you give to our viewers? What can we do to support Tina's cause, and what can we do to ensure that we don't have these machines in our elections come November or before, really? I mean, we're in primary season.
Well, I'll tell you something. You can write to the White House. You know what? I was remiss in not getting the address handy, but it's easy enough to find.
Yeah.
Just write to the White House and say, we want hand counting. The president is the one who's making these decisions, and he needs to see that there's public awareness of the fact that we have an election emergency.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all he's waiting for, and I think it's going to come about once we start seeing what Maduro has to say, and once people start getting arrested.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to start coming out as to the fact that we have an election emergency, and we'll get that order.
Yeah. Certainly,
Okay.
Maduro is a vital piece to the puzzle. Are you at liberty to talk to us before you go about how Tina is doing?
Okay. Yes, she's still got that nagging cough, and she's put into another maximum security situation. So she's not in the old one, but she's in a new one. And she just is now just hoping that Governor Polis does the right thing and wants to kind of just give him a chance to breathe easy without anybody giving him any pressure and without anybody pushing him in any way.
Yeah,
She thinks he's going to do the right thing.
yeah.
I certainly hope she's right. I
I
think
do
he is
too.
too.
As do many others throughout the country. Peter Ticktin, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for your insights. And onward we shall go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate being here. Always a pleasure.
God bless you,
God bless you.
Peter. Take care.
God bless you. Thank you.
What an honor, Chris, to have the opportunity to talk to Peter Ticktin. He is, I know that there's so much that he's just not at liberty to say, both with respect to how Tina's situation is going and what we can expect to see coming out about the elections or the election integrity issues. But I'm so grateful that he's in the fight because you can just tell he's a wealth of wisdom and I don't know, seems like a giant, you know.
Absolutely. He is a giant. And I did notice that his words are quite measured. And typically, when that seems to be the case, it usually there are things that he knows, as you said, Danielle, that he just can't disclose at this point. And hopefully, those things are good and positive,
Yeah.
moving forward. But it's a chilling reality that we've been asleep at the wheel, for so long that they've now insinuated themselves so deeply into the system that they may be able to probably can manipulate election results at will. And
Yeah.
if that is the case, then clearly we do not live in a constitutional republic right now.
No.
And we have the appearance of one to millions of Americans who go to the football games, as Peter said, or drink their beer on the weekends, spend time with their families. It appears to be fine on the surface, but the reality is far, far different, and I find that very chilling.
Yeah, it is chilling. And you know what else is chilling, Chris? The committee hearing you sat in on yesterday regarding in Senate and Governmental Affairs. Would you talk a little bit about that? Because you had a heck of a couple of days. I know you were also at a luncheon where Secretary of State Landry spoke, and there's a lot going on with respect to Louisiana elections right now, and it appears that people are really digging in their heels, wanting to maintain control over the outcomes of the election.
Yeah. Yeah, the SB 49 you're alluding to, Danielle, is a bill by State Senator Alan Seabaugh that I testified against yesterday, very clearly testified against in Senate Governmental Affairs. And what his bill would do is eliminate, the newly instituted closed primaries in Louisiana, eliminate the closed primaries for the Bessie Board, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education that oversees the formation of all of our kids in the state of Louisiana in school, the board that's responsible for keeping DEI and critical race theory and radical gender ideology out of the schools. That board in 2027
They set the
will
curriculum, right?
they set the curriculum. They are responsible for forming the minds of our children. And it's not a stretch to say that. And 8 of those seats are on the 2027 closed primary ballot in Louisiana right now, which means that right now, well, Democrats cannot vote in Republican primaries. So they cannot come over and insinuate themselves into our elections, and which would results, as it routinely does, in the election of rhino, or the election of people who have radical ideological agendas. And that would end up putting those type of people on the Bessie board. So we have the closed primary to prevent that. Well, Alan Sebaugh's bill, if it passes, will eliminate the closed primary and revert to a jungle primary for these upcoming Bessie elections. You're talking about the board, the people that will control that board for years and years to come. So, needless to say, I was staunchly opposed to it yesterday, yet that bill passed out of Senate Governmental Affairs. And one of the things that is very interesting, Danielle, is that issue is so radioactive right now. Citizens support closed primaries here and certainly support closed primaries for the Bessie board. These state senators sitting up there know that. So when the chairman at the end of the testimony, Senator Seabaugh says, I'd like to move the bill forward, it requires a vote from the committee. One of the committee members has to move to vote in favor of the bill. So the chairman says, Senator Seabaugh has asked us to move the bill forward favorably. Would anybody like to make the motion? And not one of these Republican senators would make the motion to move it forward, obviously to avoid going on record. So Chairman Kleinpeter himself made the motion.
Oh, Chris, you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're frozen. I'm going to give you just a second, and then I might boot you out and have you come back. Let's see. Chris, can you hear me? Okay. Well, I tried booting Chris out, and I can't boot him out. But I know what he was explaining, and hopefully he will come back here in a second. I don't know why we're having such tech difficulties. I know the weather's been kind of crazy. But he was just saying that no one was willing to make the motion. And so Senator Kleinpeter, who chairs that committee, was actually the one who had to make the motion in order for the bill to go forward, which it did, and it did pass out of committee, so it goes to the Senate floor next. But it's just, I think it's an absolute embarrassment, and I hope Chris is able to come right back because I wanted to ask him something else about that. Let me just give him a second, hopefully. I know he was having some internet trouble this morning as well. But while I'm waiting for him to come back, I just want to also mention that we will be moving our show to 8 a.m. starting next week. So that gives Chris enough time to get down to the legislature to be able to testify on those early morning bills. Committee hearings, they start, a lot of the committee hearings start at 9, so 9 or 9:30. So having our show start at 8 is going to make all of that workable. So we hope that you'll be joining us at 8 a.m. Starting next week. Some of the shows we had guests already scheduled for at the 10 a.m. slot. We'll leave those at 10 where we can. I believe I have, we have Warrior Wednesday next week. So that I think will move to 8 a.m. as well. Let me see if he's texted me because I thought he would have come back by now. All right. Well, we'll just have to give y'all the rest of the update whenever Chris is able to join us on Tuesday. He'll be able to speak to this a little bit more. But one of the lingering questions I have for him is, was closed primaries a campaign promise by Governor Landry? Because if it was, we got it halfway there, right? We got it in such a way that the independents are still able to vote wherever they want in the primary. But if they're starting to peel off the primaries, who's included in closed primaries, then it seems like it's the undoing of campaign promises. So I want him to confirm whether or not it was a campaign promise. I kind of feel like it was. I may be misremembering that, but the state legislature also wrote themselves out of the need for a closed primary, which is the reason that the Bessie board primary would cost $6 million to have by itself. The only reason it's the cheese standing alone in that closed primary setup is because of the legislature in the first place. So it seems like they set up this rickety type of primary system that is not cohesive, just so that they could call it uncohesive and dismantle it after they felt like they checked the box and nobody was watching them fulfill their campaign promises. So I find that pretty disgusting. I'm sure if you're watching and you're in Louisiana, even if you're not in Louisiana, you probably find that pretty disgusting too. But we will be back here with you on Tuesday. I know that we will have plenty of bills to cover. We will be doing, kind of just letting y'all know what's going to happen in the week ahead and what happened in the days since we last saw you. So God bless you. Thank you for joining us. And if you would, please consider joining the Warrior Circle so you would support us. And you can do that at join.freedomstate.us. You can also support and join LACAG at lacag.org. You can keep up with the calls to action on their Facebook page and by signing up to receive their alerts. So God bless you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will be seeing you soon.
Here in Mid-City, Baton Rouge. It's Baton Rouge's newest claw machine arcade. Jenin absolutely loves it. Packed with Pokemon gear and fun for all ages. You got to go to PokeClaw. I love it. Jenin wants to go there every Saturday. It's just a wonderful place to go for the family, for the kids. PokeClaw. Blanco Brothers has been in business in Louisiana for about 30 years now. I have personal experience with this company, and I know others who have as well. If you have a business or a home and you've got roofing, gutter, sheet metal issues at all, one number you need to know, and that's Blanco Brothers Construction. He will treat you right financially, and he will take very good care of you with regard to the quality of the service that he provides. I cannot recommend Blanco Brothers Construction more highly enough. Memorize the number 225-226-4222. Blanco Brothers Construction, the very best in the business.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Any follow-up actions, resources, and links to our sponsors will be in the show notes. All calls to action can be taken at lacag.org. That's lacag.org.
To learn more about our work, become a monthly subscriber, supporter, or advertiser at freedomstate.us. The State of Freedom, the #1 conservative podcast in Louisiana.